Welcome to Heart Speak Podcast, episode 107, Embracing the Wise Woman, Menopause, Before, During and After. I hope your week has been good. Certainly so much is happening in the world, and I'm happy to turn my attention just for a little while to a subject that some of you have asked me to talk about, menopause. Really, I'm talking about the embracing of the wise women. And menopause is not just a one-day event when your period stops. It's a 10-year event, what we call peri-menopause. And even if you're saying, well, this doesn't really relate to me, I'm older, younger, I'm a man, maybe you know someone that you can share this information with. Because every woman will go through this. And whether it's your sister, your wife, your aunt, your mother, or maybe it's yourself. Every time that we come to one of these amazing rites of passage, because that's what menopause is, we need to be honored. We need to be seeing this as an event that I think that we have forgotten how to celebrate. There's graduation from high school, there's graduation from college, there's getting married, but rarely do we actually celebrate and graduate from events that are happening within us, physiological events, the rites of passage. So yes, there is a rites of passage when a woman starts her first period, a young maiden starts her first period. But it's the same for men, for young boys. We watch them as their body changes. We watch them as the young woman's body changes. And these are amazing rites of passage. This is going from the child into the young adult. And it's a time to celebrate. You may not feel like celebrating it because it can be a very challenging time, all those hormones flying around, all those emotions that don't seem to be able to be calmed. But it is a time where we are stepping from that child. We are stepping more fully into this part of us that is not just mature, but is taking on a role. It isn't necessarily just a gender role. It's a role of action. It's a role of creativity. And so I like to see these times, these rites of passage, truly being acknowledged and celebrated, because I think it makes it easier for all of us when that happens, rather than seeing, oh, it's the change, oh, it's your hormones, oh, it's that time of your life. Yes, it is, and whoopee, lucky me. And just before I move fully into looking at how women go through this, men also go through the menopause. And I think we don't spend enough time looking at how that affects men. Many men go through really difficult psychological changes in their late 40s, early 50s, into the late 50s. A whole question of who am I? What am I here for? What is my value? Because so commonly it has been that we don't recognize how men are affected by their hormones. Men are affected psychologically, anatomically, physiologically. And each of us has to recognize that not only am I talking about becoming the wise woman, at a certain age, we are also becoming the wise man if we're a man. And this age is around 56. Now, that doesn't mean that when you wake up at 56, you're ding, I'm now a wise person. The whole process of what we call peri-menopause, this idea of moving between the time where we, as women perhaps, would have periods which would be aligned to the moon, hence the word menses, menopause. Men is the moon or the month. So for a woman, she cycles every month. And then there's a pause to that, not just a pause, an end to that cycle, but it isn't an end to her cycling with the moon. So it is a pause in the fact that she now no longer cycles with her period with the moon. She then moves into cycling with what I call the dark moon, the new moon. And I think men are as affected as women are in this. So there's understanding that there's a monthly cycle. In women is much more obvious, in men it's less obvious. So let's just wind back and I did say this is the time of embracing the wise woman. And the wise woman is not just someone who says, as I say, ding, I'm now 56, I'm wise. Wisdom is learnt experience. Wisdom is knowledge that has been created and experienced, and the wisdom comes out of that knowledge. So wisdom is not knowledge. It's okay, I had information, I had knowledge, I'm going to put that into practice, I'm going to see what comes out of it. And that wisdom is taken from our events in our life, our stories in our life, our experiences. What did I learn? And that wisdom grows through our years. And it's that wisdom that then allows us to say, look, I am a wise woman, a wise man. Because I'm not telling you something that I've read in a book or that I've seen on Google. I'm telling you something from my experiences. And so many wise men and women are storytellers in indigenous tribes, in native people. They are the storytellers. And you might say, wow, why are you telling me this story? It's because a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. A story is a way of passing on wisdom. And it's not just do this and you'll be fine. It's this is my experience. This is what I learned from it. So throughout our life, that's how we gain wisdom. And there are times where we need to pay more attention to why did that experience happen to me? What's going on in my life? And many of you have been listening to me for a while, recognize that if I just take us back to every experience, there is a response, there's an action, and there's what we call accountability, 3 phases. So I respond to a thought, I respond to an inspiration, I go into action on it, I choose to go into action, and my accountability is, what am I taking from that experience? And that needs to happen for men and women, because too often we A, don't respond, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, something else comes up. B, maybe we don't take action, or maybe we get lost in the action, lost in the story. And then C, we don't want to be accountable for it. That just happened to me. Maybe because, of course, it could have been a very difficult experience, one with suffering, and we just shy away from the emotions. Or maybe we did something we're not too proud of, and we certainly don't want to be accountable for that. So this understanding of, am I responding? Am I making a choice to do this? And am I accountable for what happened? Is needed for all of us as creative human beings. But for women, we see this cycle especially during our moon time, during the time when we follow the month, I should say. We follow our cycle. So that after our period, we have this time when we're very creative, we're responding to a new inspiration, we're responding to what's going on. And then at the time of ovulation, we go, da-da, I've created something. We're in the center of our story, of our creation, we're taking action. And then that last part, what we call the progesterone cycle, part of the cycle, is when we take back into ourselves what was the wisdom that we learned. What am I gaining from this? It's like harvest. So spring, summer, harvest. I know I'm giving you a different lot of analogies or metaphors, but there really are only 3 different parts to every cycle. As I say, a rising up, a creative phase, the estrogen or estrogen phase, the phase when which then ends in this time of celebration. And then there's this time progesterone phase, nurturing phase, where we are feeding ourselves with that experience. And then the 3rd phase of this actually is what we call our period, when the moon time, the true moon time, when we actually let go of that story, we've taken in the wisdom, we've celebrated what we experienced, we honor who we are, and then we let go of the story, allowing a new birth after our period. So you imagine that if as a woman we were taught this, that our period itself is a time of creation, nurturing and harvesting, and then dying to that old story to be reborn, we wouldn't have so much of a struggle when it comes to menopause. Because menopause becomes a struggle when nobody has been telling us to gain our wisdom, to take into ourselves what did we learn from the experience. And sometimes we've seen maybe our period is just a very difficult time of the month and we don't even want to know about it. Sometimes you may even have just stopped your period. You may have said, oh, I've been taking a pill, I've been on a patch, I haven't cared about my period, what does it matter? And so you haven't even understood this cycle that was being given to you by the Great Mother, that was part of your innate nature. This is the gift for you, this gift of being able to create not just babies, but every month the chance to bring and give birth to something new. That is why women have periods, is to give birth every month to something new. But we're not told that. We're told that having a period, having a womb, is just about having a baby. So if you don't want a baby, then don't have a period. And that, my friends, has given us a lot of problems. But when we acknowledge that we are creative beings, that we're not only creating in order to give birth, but also nurturing those creations and then harvesting from that creation and then dying to that creation, it's a very different cycle. And this is what I call the 3-day moon ritual that some of you have practiced with me. Now, I haven't forgotten those of you who don't have a period. I'm just talking about what it's like to have a period. And if you don't have a period during your younger years, we might even say from 18 till 46, then please, I need you to follow the 3-day dark moon ritual, which means that on the day before the new moon, you will do the letting go. On the day of the new moon, you will connect to the source, the ocean of possibilities. And on the day after the new moon, then you give birth to something new. So if you happen to be on a pill or a patch or some injection that you don't have a period, then follow that cycle, please. Because as women, we are cyclical beings. And when we flatline our cycle, we get sick. So understanding how to make sure that we follow a cycle keeps us well, keeps our organs well, keeps us psychologically well. So when people get depressed or unhappy, it's because we've flatlined our own natural cycles. Okay, so that's what we need to be doing up to a certain age. And then we come across what we call the peri-menopause. And just as what we call menarche, which is the beginning of what we call the first period for a child, that first period isn't actually the beginning of what we call the rites of passage for a young person. As you know, when you're 8 or 9, if you're a woman or a boy, you start to change your body. So for a woman, you start to develop breasts, you might get body hair, you see the changes in your body. And those changes will carry on almost until you're 18. So we could say from 8 to 18, there is this period of what we call a teenager, but it's also this evolving of this young maiden, this young man, this coming into a very creative, productive cycle of our lives, strong, courageous, taking risks. And the same happens at menopause. It's between 46 and 56, at least a 10-year cycle. So if you're anywhere within that range, hear me, because it's not just when the period ends. And classically, the period ends around the age of 51. That's just on average. And so if you maybe go and see your health professional, they say, oh, there you go, and you're in the menopause, but you've been in it for a while. And you will go on in it. It's not just a one-off event, okay? So peri-menopause. So by the time we reach our mid to late 40s, we need to have felt that we've reached the success of whatever it means to us to be successful. So our 40s are our power years. They're years when we are putting everything together, everything we've worked for in our 20s, our 30s, coming together. And so this may be a success at business, it may be a success as a mother, it may be success at home, wherever. But these are your success years. And years where it's time to gather all that lovely, juicy wisdom to harvest and say, look what I'm doing, look how powerful I am, look how wonderful I am. And it's not a wrong thing to do. So if I was running a business, I'd want these 40-year-olds in my business to run the business, because it's a time where you're shining, you're glowing, you're coming into, you're not just coming into, but you've reached the pinnacle of what you wanted to achieve from what I might say your ego. Now, there's nothing wrong with having an ego, but this should be a time when you're proud of yourself, you celebrate yourself, you love yourself. It's good to feel all those things. And if you're not, then you need to work on things, because many of us go into our 40s maybe with self-doubt, or with feeling I need to do more, or maybe things haven't worked out in relationships and we're still feeling inadequate there. So what happens is that as we go into those latter 40s in our life, we are using a lot of adrenal energy to keep going. And what are the adrenal glands? There are stress glands. And so every day, whether it's just to produce a little adrenaline to get going, or cortisone to deal with things in our life, we're pulling on our adrenal glands to get us through the day, to motivate us, to deal with stress around us. And the more stress that we put on ourselves, the more worn out our adrenal glands are. So if I'm feeling I'm not good enough, I've got to try harder, I've got to work harder, and I think I should, I must, I ought to, I'm not loved, all of that stress goes into the adrenal glands, and we get adrenal fatigue or adrenal inactivity. And the adrenal glands are associated with the base chakra. The base chakra is, as you've heard me speak about, to do with belonging, security. Do I belong to this tribe? Following the rules of the tribe. And the more we are connected to our base chakra for that sense of, am I doing it well enough? Do people approve of me? Should I work harder? The more our adrenal glands are getting tired. But if we've learned to root ourselves into that root chakra beneath our feet, we at least have learned that a sense of confidence, a sense of security, a sense of belonging does not come from the tribe, does not come from our culture, does not come from our family. It comes from belonging to Mother Earth. And I say that not in a just Mother Earth, belonging to the human tribe, belonging to nature. I am nature. I am a cosmic being. And it's not something just made up in your head, an illusion. It's saying, I belong, I'm here. So confidence doesn't come by our actions or by approval or by whether someone criticizes us. It comes from actually a feeling of being rooted. Here I am. All right? So whatever age you are, please root yourself. Remember, imagining that you're having magnets on the soles of your feet, even larger magnets in Mother Earth. She's pulling you into her, and you are sending roots into her. And the roots are surrounded with love and support, but they also give you this sense of tapping in through your root chakra, deep into the creative source of Mother Earth. All right? Whatever age, whatever gender, please do this. Now we return to you, maybe mid-40s, maybe you're older, maybe you're younger. But the mid-40s are time to celebrate and rest. So finding ways to rest, relax, take the pressure off you. Whatever that means. Now you might say, oh, yes, I do. I go out jogging, I go hiking. That's lovely. But are you doing it from a sense of should and must? Are you saying to yourself, I've got to run 5 miles, I've got to do this, I've got to do that? Or are you doing it from a place of pleasure? So the mid-40s are also a time to take off the goals, get rid of the goals. I should, I must, I've got to be thinner, I've got to be this, I've got to be that, because it just wears you out. So what roles and rules are you following, especially at this time, that are exhausting you? And again, I'm not just talking to you if you're mid-40s, I'm talking to all of us. This is a time of taking those rules off, calming ourselves down, finding contentment in little things. Doesn't mean you're not a very busy person at work, but maybe every hour, am I following rules or am I making choices? Did I have some pleasure today or was it all just work? Maybe, as I find, putting the pleasure in at the beginning of the day, taking myself for a walk, sitting down, reading a book, and just having my cup of coffee. What is it that you do that takes you away from the boundaries of structure and rules? Having fun, having pleasure isn't a goal-orientated event. It's just, I do this, I'm enjoying it. Maybe you set the timer for 30 minutes, but then it's finished. And you're just saying, I'm enjoying being here and now. Why are you learning something? Why are you listening to something? What is the should, must, and ought that's driving us? All right? So we calm our adrenal glands down. We may start taking more vitamin B. Vitamin B is a wonderful complex to deal with stress. We may look after our body in a different way. We may eat differently. So during the peri-menopause, these are wonderful years for really honoring our body, really looking after it. How are we dealing with life? And it's also a time where we move from the mother energy into the crone energy. And the crone energy, if you want to call that the wise woman, I'm happy. But there are 3 aspects of the feminine: virgin, mother, crone. The virgin is the one that really stretches up to about 18 to around 46, 56 is that mothering energy. After 56 is that crone energy. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to wait to 56 to be a wise woman. I have many young wise women in my life. But it is physiologically the understanding that between the 46 to 56, we may feel less inclined to want to mother everybody. We may feel that we need more time on our own. We may feel that we want to be more involved with community and less with just the family. Yes, I don't know if any of you are feeling like that. And you're still going to have family, you're still going to take care of your children and your grandchildren perhaps, but you're less inclined to say, I want to constantly give to this group of beings. Or it may be in your work. Maybe in your work you mother everybody. Maybe you've reached a stage and you say, I really want to teach. I really want to write. I really want to share my wisdom more than I want to mother everybody in my practice. All right. So don't feel bad if, as you're approaching 56, you're saying, I love you all, but actually I'm backing off. I'm going to do things slightly different. I'm going to find my own creativity, because this is what menopause is about, or perimenopause. It's moving from the mothering energy that is perhaps always giving to actually I need to consider what I need so I can give in a very different way and still bring wisdom, love to those around you, but not in that very focused caretaking way. Any of you notice that? Is that changing in us? So it is a challenge when, as a woman, perhaps you are 56 and onwards, and now you're taking care of your grandchildren. They've come to live with you. That can be very challenging, because physiologically, that isn't where your body wants to be. You want time out. You don't want to be changing nappies or taking children through the process of their very young years. Of course, we have to just adapt to what comes, but it can cause us troubles. Okay. Now let's look at some of the symptoms that we get. So some of the symptoms, let's stay with the adrenal glands. sometimes often we relate to hot flushes or hot flashes as they're called. And people say, oh, they're terrible. Yes, they may well be. And my question, people often say, should I take more estrogen? Well, you can, but inevitably you will have to go through this time when the estrogen actually starts to slow down. Now, why is having a healthy adrenal gland important? It's because that once we stop producing estrogen, then from the ovaries, the place in which we develop estrogen is actually the adrenal gland. It's a different type, but we still produce it from there. And so if our adrenal glands are already exhausted, producing any type of estrogen is a problem. Can you see that? So we're pushing ourselves to produce this estrogen and we haven't got the resources. So one other thing that then starts to happen, I'll come back to the hot flashes, is we put on weight. And why do we put on weight? Two reasons. One is our body will start to take on a more, if I may say, androgynous shape. Nobody tells us that we're going to lose our waist or that things are going to sag in areas that we didn't even know could sag. I don't necessarily say everything's sagging downwards. I'm not into that. But it is interesting how our skin becomes less pliable, less flexible. And we do dry out a little bit in areas of our skin. But we also become more square, if I may say. And I would love if clothes manufacturers would take into account. But at the same time, we may put on weight. And the reason we put on weight is that our fat is another place from which we can make estrogen. So I know that might be uncomfortable for many of us. It doesn't mean you will put on weight, but you might put on some fat in places that you didn't know you would be fat, maybe in your breasts or maybe in your buttocks or somewhere. And it really is just another source of estrogen. Okay, now, without that estrogen, we find ourselves becoming stressed far more easily. All right, your adrenal glands are already exhausted, you're not producing that much estrogen. And our estrogen, what we now understand, is our balancer of our stress. So that, sorry to jump between estrogen and estrogen, but let's just call it estrogen for the sake of it. With the estrogen balances out our stress. And our progesterone, which definitely stops when we stop having periods, also nurtures and helps us balance our energy. So when those two are not so prolific as they've been, we rely on our adrenal glands to help us, and they may be tired. So when we have hot flushes, what happens is that this is a parasympathetic response. So you might know that when we get stressed, everything shuts down. We rely on our heart being strong, our lungs being strong, and everything is primed to help us to fight or flight, etc. But after you've had that experience of stress, have you noticed that you sweat, you might get hot, everything opens up to get rid of that heat that was created due to the stress. So hot flushes are actually a parasympathetic response to stress. And what I find is the more that we're still running in this sort of stressful way of I should, I must, I ought to, I've got to, the more literally it's like having mild PTSD. We will literally have more hot flushes, especially at night, because nighttime is a time where our mind switches off, our adrenal glands actually go quieter, especially about 3 a.m. in the morning. And so any thoughts that may be going on in our head cause our parasympathetic nervous system to overwork to try and calm us down. So I come back to saying is, yes, you can take different remedies, things like sage or salvia or black carouse or other remedies to calm down that hot flushes. But most importantly is calm down. And I found that when I was going through this time, I found that if someone asked me to do one more thing than I was doing, I just had these hot flushes. And so I'm suggesting that this is a time to learn not to multitask. This is a time to calm down. This is time to say, I'll do one thing at a time. I learned to take time out, say, nope, I'm going to sit down and do nothing for a while. I also learned to breathe out. You might say, well, aren't you doing that all the time? I learned that when I could breathe out fully, hold my breath out fully, and then let the next breath come in, it calmed my mind down. So all I would say is find a method where your mind calms down without having other rules, like I've got to meditate or I've got to do yoga. Sometimes I would find I just wanted to go for a walk. Sometimes I wanted to watch something that just made me laugh. Sometimes I wanted to lose myself in a detective mystery. Finding, or maybe some of you will cook, some of you will do something creative. But if you're like me and you have an overactive mind, you have to find somewhere that mind can be placed without us putting stress into this. Yes? Okay, so another place that we develop stress, so that's the hot flashes, that's what happens there. The next place is many a time we can wake up feeling anxious. Do any of you feel that? Or even depressed? And I don't think we talk about this enough. That actually you can feel that everything's going well in the world, but you feel just anxious or doom-ridden. And this is again a part of the perimenopause where it's like the train is working very fast, but actually everything is saying the train needs to stop, be still, be menopause, pausing ourselves. And so if you've got this high state of anxiety or action in your body, what am I going to do? What am I planning? What am I doing? When you go through the menopause, you may wake in the middle of the night or early morning with this feeling of anxiety because your body is saying we're stopping, but your mind is keeping going. So I found that sometimes I would get out of bed, or when I did have this problem, I would get out of bed. Maybe I again would go and read or watch something on television or listen to something on an audiobook, anything to quieten my mind. I found that chasing my mind after my mind didn't work. Like, come on, slow down. Doing a meditation didn't work for me. I needed to actually send my mind somewhere else. Now, if you're having these extremes, anxiety, depression, yes, please see your doctor, see your health professional, but you might wish to see an acupuncturist and calm your fire down, or you might wish to see a homeopath and receive different remedies specific for your needs. Or you might look at some of the flower essences that can just calm us down. Simple things, even just rescue remedy, just calming us down. Because this is, I've got to say, the perimenopause is about calming. Because whatever we haven't dealt with, especially around our menarche, our childhood, around those ages, maybe from about 9 to 14 especially, if something happened there that we didn't deal with, when we get to menopause, we need to deal with it. Maybe someone died, maybe you were abused, maybe something happened. I've got to tell you, events that we don't deal with when we're young will come back in the menopause. And yes, you may need to see a therapist. You may need to go and talk this out. You may need to deal with this. Because everything that hasn't been dealt with is coming forward for us, again, coming back to that, to say, what did I say? What am I celebrating from that experience? What did I learn from that experience? What is the wisdom I'm taking? So that perimenopause is a time for learning, releasing, letting go. And as we're moving out of the perimenopause, as I say, the creativity goes from a time where we are creating children or looking after children to what do I want to create? So we also are stepping forward as the wise woman, not just to go out and teach, and even though that's part of the cycle, but what have I not given birth to? And what do I want to do that is purely for me? Becoming maybe a little bit more self-aware and self-centered. I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to do that. This is a wonderful time for really putting energy into those things that you have put off because maybe you had a family or because you were busy with your work. This is a time of creativity, a time of a hobby. Join some hobby, some group that enhances that hobby. Because as we come out of the menopause, and we may still be dealing with issues way beyond, if I may say, that 56 years, but we are now moving into how do I help the community? How do I help the next 7 generations? How do I build a firm foundation? What do I want to share? And in many indigenous peoples, it is the grandparents, the wise people who actually teach the children while the parents go to work to make the money. It is the wise people who have the knowledge to share with the children. And I've watched, as I've got older, that wisdom comes out in many forms, but so does creativity. And I want to say that just because you go through the menopause, it doesn't mean you're not juicy and creative and that sexually you can't have a wonderful time. Testosterone doesn't change. What is testosterone? It's that fire up, that lust, that joy of sensuality and sexuality and creativity. Because sex isn't just about having babies, it's about intimacy. It's about connecting to having an orgasm so we connect to that bliss state, that oneness. So none of that should change. And if it does, then it may not have been there before. So that our post-menopause, we should have just as much sexual charge, but we may change the way we want to express it. We may not want to express it with a partner. We may wish to keep it to ourselves. So we may feel it when we're doing something really juicy and enjoyable that we love doing. And so how we pass through this is the wisdom, the creativity, the juiciness, and having a focus on something that gives us pleasure. I remember listening to a wonderful old lady who was talking, and I say old, but I would say that she appeared like a young woman in her enthusiasm. She was in her 90s, and she said, I said, what gives you joy? And she said, you know, I have a garden. I enjoy planting something, watching it grow season after season, learning about how I will do this differently. And she said, I love the harvesting because I look and say, wow, that happened for me. So having something where there is, again, beginning, middle, end, but without that goal that this is going to enhance my ego, my sense of self. She said, I just have so much pleasure. That's what we need to develop, whether we're pre-menopause or post. And if we haven't dealt with some of the issues that I've been talking about, taking care of other people, not being able to slow down, we may see that occur right through the rest of our life. Many women have hot flashes way through their older years, and that's because that adrenal gland is still not calmed down. So it's not just something that happens up to 56. It's saying, okay, if I'm still getting these issues, I need to find a way of focusing on, do I celebrate myself? Do I like myself? What am I pushing in myself? Where am I shooting on myself? All those things may happen. And whatever shape your body takes, then enjoy it. And I've watched so many beautiful women, not because, how can I say, they glow because everything that they are is beautiful. The way they look, they take care of their hair, their nails, their face. Yes, everything will change to a certain degree, but it certainly is not because you are no longer juicy, creative, and gorgeous. So finally, I want to say is, as we go through the perimenopause, it is good to have people to celebrate with. It is good to recognize that these anxieties that may come, this desire not to take care of others, this more time for ourselves, these hot flashes that might come, our weight changes, etc., they're all part of our body doing what it knows how to do. And what I learned was how to trust that body, how to trust my body knew. And I promised my body that whatever shape it ended up, I would keep it toned. I would enjoy it. And I do enjoy my body. And one other feature that I experienced, and you can have a very, so one other experience I had was having headaches. And I had such sickening headaches. I never want to have those again. And often I would find people would say to me, oh, yes, I had that in my menopause. And that was again because of this. I was wearing myself out in my 40s. I didn't have enough estrogen. And the other issue that was coming up in me was that as we move into the crone years, what I call dragon energy that is beneath our feet rises up inside us to literally burn away, which is part of the hot flashes, burning away that which we no longer need in our life. So it's very natural for us to feel this rising heat, partly, as I say, as a parasympathetic response to overwork or overstress, but also as a rising up of our power. Because as we go through the menopause, we become more powerful because we are connected to the dragon energy beneath our feet and the cosmic energy above our heads. We get more connected to the moon, more connected to who we are as part of the Great Mother. And you may feel that this power of energy coming up. And it was one of the reasons that I learned how to root myself, how to breathe out. Not because I didn't want this dragon energy coming up, but it was coming up so fast it was giving me headaches. So if you're in any way feeling stressed around your head or getting headaches, don't please meditate up out your body. Don't bring this energy up. It's going to come up naturally. Keep your energy rooted into the earth. Stop meditating out your body. Send your energy into the earth. The energy will then come up more gradually without so much stress. And this energy coming up is one other symptom that I'm thinking about, or one other sign, is fogginess in the head, inability to concentrate, can't remember things. People will often say, oh, I'm becoming demented early. No, you're not. It's just that everything in your head doesn't necessarily need to be there. So all those thoughts, all the ways in which we've thought may now be being burnt away by the dragon energy saying, you don't need that, you don't need that, you don't need that. So it's not that you're becoming demented, you can't think straight, you're forgetting things. It's because many a time we've got so much going on in our head and it's not useful. So quietening our mind, doing one thing at a time, meditating down into our roots rather than up out of our head is really good. Finding a way to express ourselves during perimenopause is a wonderful time to take up art, take up pottery, take up music, take up writing poetry, to be able to express how you're feeling, because a lot of feelings will come up during this time. A lot of energy needs to be cleared, but you don't need to necessarily hold on to it. You may see a therapist. You may also choose just to express it. Let everything that needs to come up be put out into the world for yourself and find a calm place within. I hope this is helping you all. I've covered as much as I can, just for the most important parts of what I think happens during the perimenopause. As I say, if you're in your early 40s, relax, calm down, make time. If you're coming towards the later 40s, relax, calm down, make time. But it's an unwinding of all the stories we've carried. Do I need to carry this story? Do I need to carry this energy anymore? Do I need to think that about myself? What am I celebrating? What am I embodying as wisdom? And what do I need to let go of? As we come out of this at 56, this is a time for stepping into that wise woman. And instead of now following our period, we follow the dark moon, those 3 days I mentioned around the new moon. And so even though I'm no longer cycling with my period, every month, from the moment I was 11 when I started my periods to the day I die, I as a woman am birthing something new, whether it's with my period or with the moon, the new moon, I give birth. So women, ladies, children, sisters, girls, we are the creative source, and there's never been a more important time in history for us to empty what doesn't matter, connect to what does, and give birth to this new world or new worlds that are happening, because we are needed at this time. So bless you all, pass on the message. I hope this helps you to understand yourself. If you have any specific questions I haven't covered, let me know via either the Great Mother Calling Facebook group or info@christinepage.com. I want to hear, I want to help, and enjoy. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the HeartSpeak podcast with Dr. Christine Page. Please check out all HeartSpeak episodes in the podcast archive section on www.christinepage.com. HeartSpeak is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Sticher Radio, and now playing on iHeart Radio. You can also watch the archive podcasts on YouTube. Connect with Christine on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, including her newest Facebook group, The Great Mother Calling. Do share with family, friends, colleagues. Join us next time for another edition of HeartSpeak.